Enduro bikes are made to cover a wide variety of terrain and uses, serving as the everyday driver for many consumers riding their local trail network and maybe some bike parks on the weekend, to attacking the gnarliest terrain at EDR World Cups under some of the best athletes in the world. We opted for bike park laps at Snow Summit in Big Bear Lake, California, to get our 6 long travel bikes as close to the limit as possible in a relatively controlled environment. Our test dives into the initial impressions of each bike, their on-trail performance, what we liked or didn't like, and what kind of rider we think each bike is for. We choose which bike we would take home if we could get one for free in the configuration we tested, and which bike we would buy with the ability to change frame size or any components. In this video, we'll be talking about the Specialized Enduro. If you're looking for a different bike or want to see all the bikes we tested, refer to the main test session video. The Enduro lineup dates back to 1999 and has stood the test of time as one of the most widely capable mountain bikes on the market. This current generation Enduro has been in production for over 4 years, making it the oldest bike in our test. It's also more downhill focused than ever, being built around 170mm of horse-link driven FSR rear suspension and a 170mm travel fork with 29-inch wheels front and rear. We tested the expert level build kit, which retails for $7,000 and comes spec'd with all aluminum specialized components, RockShox Zeb Select Plus fork, and a Super Deluxe Select Plus shock with hydraulic bottom mount adjustment. Stopping power is handled by SRAM Code RS brakes with 200mm rotors front and rear, paired with SRAM GX Access Eagle drivetrain and a 1-up 210mm dropper to round things out, as well as a steer tube mounted SWAT tool for easy access on trail. Geometry adjustment built into the frame is found in the form of a rear shock eyelet flip chip that allows for just under half a degree of head tube angle adjustment and 7mm of bottom bracket height adjustment. The frame also allows plenty of room for a water bottle and swap box for down tube storage. We tested our size S5 Enduro in the low setting, which comes out to a 511mm reach and 63.9 degree head tube angle. The 1302mm wheelbase includes a 442mm chainstay length for a mostly planted feeling that required a bit more effort to throw around. A 76 degree seat tube angle, which was the slackest in test by only a small margin, makes for a relaxed pedaling position and is not the strongest quality of the Enduro. Being older than the outgoing Trek Slash and bringing long travel 29er performance to where it is today over the last 4 years, it's safe to say the Enduro has remained ahead of its time. With such impressive downhill performance, is the Enduro still the best all-rounder out of the group?
This bike has been around for a while and I've actually always been really curious to ride one. I think I would personally size down. The S5, in my opinion, is for someone over 6'5". It's a long bike. Or someone who's just maybe not as playful as me. Like if you are someone who's really planted, likes to keep the wheels on the ground, it's tons of traction, rides really smooth, but I don't think it's very playful. It just wants to sit there and go straight and go fast. I think it's probably a great race bike on wide open tracks. I don't think it's great on really tight things, and I think if you make mistakes, you are a bit of sold out of luck because it's just gonna continue to go the way that you had it pointed.
I really got along with it. It's a tale of 2 bike rides because I was oversprung at first, and so it was very similar to the Intense experience, but swapped out springs, sat into the travel more, and I was either, like I went from the high BB setting with a stiff shock,
Low BB,
I went from low BB with a stiff shock to high BB with a soft shock, and all of a sudden, like, my pedals were where I wanted it to be, tracking really good through rocks, carrying speed through rough shit. Like, it was great, and I think the #1 complaint that I hear about this bike, especially on the internet, is that the seat tube is too slack, because, like, the effective is, like, really far back there, and I thought it was great, because, like, the vertical ones, like the deviate,
they're kind of in the way.
Yeah, like, it's fine if you're just pedaling straight up a fire road, but
right.
if you're doing any sort of normal mountain biking, it's, you're like this, which is super weird.
Yeah, which, to give them and Deviate credit, this has a 210 dropper. They have a 240 dropper on there, and it kind of helps get it out of the way.
Yeah.
The thing I got on it was expecting to feel like pretty stretched out and not that stoked on it, but it was super easy to get used to. I felt like I kind of put the rear wheel wherever I wanted. I did notice that the rear end was a little longer than some of the other bikes, and that became apparent kind of in like tighter turns, which kind of like Lear kind of mentioned. But but I thought the rear suspension felt great. I was on the opposite end of the spectrum. I was thinking that the spring was going to be too soft, and I measured the sag this morning at like 30%, so I was like, it's a little further than I want to be, but it worked great for the whooped out bike park, and I thought, like high speed compressions, it was really, really good, and even on the jump trails, carried speed really well. I over jumped a lot of stuff first lap, so not the worst thing for a bike that you want to go fast on. And I think it does that really well. I think we did a couple 10 ply laps at the end where I was on the canyon coming from this, and I was kind of wishing that I was on this just for the rear suspension performance. I think it is really, really good.
Yeah, I thought the front and rear suspension agreed with each other a lot. And it's kind of weird because it's like an Ultimate but without buttercups, and then it's the 2023 shock.
No,
but it's like the Select version.
I think it's current. I think it's
current here.
So this is Select Plus front and rear.
Select Plus has high speed and low speed?
Yep. Ultimate gives you the buttercups. That's the only difference.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah. So I thought it was awesome spec. Like, we had a few things rattling around. Did have the crank arm rattle loose. That was a little concerning. And then the older access derailleurs make quite a bit more noise than the transmission ones. Yeah. And Shimano ones. So I think that was most of the issue. But yeah, the crank arm was a little concerning. Other than that, I thought it was awesome. We threw a taller bar on and a few more spacers under the stem than when Leo rode it, which thankfully he gave us some valuable feedback that the front felt a little low. So we just went ahead and threw on the tallest bars we could. And it felt great. I think my only complaint was not having all the adjustments on the rear shock that you could with like an Ultimate level shock. Yeah.
But if you had to choose between having a compression knob here or there, all day on the fork.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the fork was awesome. Super easy to set up. Everything else just worked. It was cool. I mean, this one-up dropper kind of rattles a bit, but I think that was most of the rattling we were hearing. The GX derailleur makes a bit of noise. You can't throw a transmission on here. It's not UDH compatible, but those are minor details.
If I were to buy this bike, I'd definitely size down. I would get an S4 instead of an S5. But for 90% of the riding we did today, the length was manageable. It was just in those really tight corners and any sort of flat corner without support that was loose, where the front to rear ratio was a little weird, and I wish I either had a longer chainstay or a shorter front end. But like you said, this is one of the longer chainstays on test, so it was pretty manageable even for being such a long bike for me.
With such a heavy focus on smashing descents and bumps of all sizes, what kind of rider pairs best with the Specialized Enduro?
If you're a tall guy, if you're sub 200 pounds, because that's what the OEM spring is set for, and there's no compression adjustment, so you're kind of locked into that. If you're a tall guy, sub 200 pounds, like to keep the wheels on the ground, go fast in a straight line, this might be the bike for you.
I think it's a great bike if you ride really fast stuff a lot. I don't think the lower speed trails, it was as exciting. Like, it was playful enough. Maybe an air shock would help that. But if you want one bike, I think, to do kind of like a lot of aggressive riding on, then it kind of is a good substitute for a downhill bike, and it's playful enough to still have fun on like the blue trails.
I thought this was a really good one bike. Yeah. Like, with a slacker seat angle, I thought it pedaled really well. Yeah, I think it smashed the stuff at high speeds. And if you get the right size, right? Like, if I'm on the S5, I wouldn't want to do all my riding on it. But if I size down a little bit, put a tall bar on it, I feel like this could be a one bike and I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think that's where it would be, like, if you're looking at an S5, but your trails maybe aren't as high speed, go for the S4. If you're looking at mostly bike park, maybe some enduro racing, like generally just higher speed riding, then the longer size would be beneficial, because you do get that, like, in those kind of hang up moments or unexpected things, having the longer front end is nice. But for maneuverability, an S4, it'd be interesting to try. But I was happy to feel more comfortable than I thought I would straight away on it. To see how the rest of the test pool stacked up, check out the full Enduro bike test session video, or for more details on each specific bike, head over to vitalmtb.com.